Hey everyone, so I've been getting a few messages from players recently who seem to be struggling with a similar problem to each other. So in this video, I'm going to go over how to overcome the problem of being able to play well in practice, but for some reason not being able to play well in matches. So the reason I'm making this video is because I've gotten a lot of requests from people asking how to overcome this issue, and also because I've released an email to my email list recently going into detail how to overcome this problem. Now, because the email was very well received and people liked it, I released it for the public on my Facebook page, and you can also take a look at it by clicking on the link in the description, and in there I go over why some players are, like superstars in practices, but then just nervous wrecks when it comes to games. So in this video, I'm going to explain to you some things you can do, some, mindsets you can have to make sure that you go into games as confident as you go into practice. Now first, you need to realize that this issue is a lot more common than you think. Don't get down on yourself because you have this issue of playing well in practice but not games. It is way more common than you think, although a lot of players won't admit it. But just from the amount of players who have come and asked me for advice on this issue, just know plenty of players have had this problem. I've had this problem before, and I'm going to give you some real things you can do in order to solve this problem, or at least start taking steps towards solving this issue. Now first, let's go over the main reason why players play well in practices but not games. The huge and the biggest reason for this is because think about a practice. You're with your teammates that you play with all the time. You go to practice pretty much every day or every other day. There's a lot less pressure in practice than there is in a match. If you miss a shot in a practice, it's not really a big deal because you can just go back and try again. If you lose the ball in practice, it's not as big a deal as if you lose it in a match. And if you make a mistake in practice, it's okay. It's practice. You can just get the next one or the next one or the next one. Now in games, the problem is players will think, well, I can't make a mistake in the games because then what if the other team scores? If I miss that opportunity, it might cost our team's chances of winning. If I make, a bad decision, it can affect the game. This is why players seem to go missing in games but can be very good in practices. Because in practice, they're willing to take risk. They're willing to take more risks and kind of express themselves more and play more to their game than they are in matches. So what we really find the underlying issue for this is that players are lacking in confidence in games and feeling nervous in games while they have it in practices. So really, if we can get you to the point where you're just as confident in games as you are in practice, your performances will start to match those of how well you play in practice. So it's all about just elevating your confidence to that level you have in practices and just not putting as much pressure on yourself in matches, which a lot of players do. A lot of players get extremely nervous when a match comes around. A lot of players put just a ton of pressure on themselves when a match comes around to either influence the game in some way or not mess up. And I know this because I used to be one of those players. It wasn't until I started to relax and I started to tell myself, don't worry, you're a good player, and don't worry, you've done this hundreds of times before in practice, and don't put this kind of pressure on yourself. It wasn't until I did that until I started playing well. That's when I started playing well, when I started putting less pressure on myself to be this god in games. I just said, look, play your normal game that you would anytime else and go from there. And that just changed the way I played in matches immensely. Another reason that players seem to struggle in games and not practices is because they have many more doubts in games than practices. Let's say if you're doing a finishing drill in a practice, you don't really have too many thoughts like, am I going to miss this? What will happen if I miss this? Or anything like that, because there's less risk. You just go on and do it. But in a match, if you have a shooting opportunity and you get that rush of blood to the head and you have a chance to score, there might be a million and one thoughts going through your head that have you doubting yourself. Things like, what will happen if I miss? Should I score this? Is this an easy chance? Will my teammates and coaches get angry at me if I miss this? We need to cut this out completely. We need to eradicate the doubts from your mind. I go over this in the email, again, just look in the description for the link, about the difference between a player who goes into a match with doubts and and a player who goes into a match believing I am a good player. I've done this before. Everything's going to be fine. It really is a huge difference in mentality. You know, there could be two players. Actually, this is a good way of putting it. Let's take two players who have equal talent and ability. They're equal in every single way. Physical attributes, you know, skill-wise, you know, fitness-wise, they're completely equal. Now, let's say they're both superstars in practice. They both have the same amount of ability. They don't get nervous in practice, and they kill it. They're basically the main man in practice. You know, they're basically the superstar in practices. Now, let's say when it comes to games, this guy, talented kid number one, goes into games and thinks, oh no, my team's probably expecting me to play very well in this game. What if I mess up? What if I get a chance and I don't score and we lose 1-0? What if I get a chance and I don't score and we tied a game and we don't get into the championship? What if I, go try and pass the ball but it's intercepted and they go off and score? What if I injure myself? What if all these what ifs are going to put that huge amount of doubt in this player's mind, and they're not going to do what they would normally do in practice. Now, second player, same amount of talent, same amount of skill, goes into the match pumped up like, yeah, let's do this. I am ready for this. I've prepared for this. I am a great player. I know I'm a great player. I'm going to play great in this match. Now, these are two very vastly different mindsets. Now, remember, these players are essentially identical. Exact same talent, exact same skill. The only difference is this player is going in with doubts, asking what if, and this player is going in with the reassurance, reassuring themselves that they are a good player, that they are going to play well in this match. Now, for those of you who don't think mental things, affect the way you play, just think of an example like this. Now, which out of these two players would you back to play well? The guy who, again, just as talented, just as skilled, but goes into the match saying, what if I mess up? What if I make a mistake? What if I miss that shot? What if I get a penalty and I miss? What if I get a free kick and I screw it up? What if I lose the ball multiple times? What if I just have a bad game? Or would you back the player that goes in, I know I'm going to play well. I'm a great player. I've done this hundreds of times before in practice. I have confidence in myself. Which player do you think is going to play well? Obviously, this guy. You would back him. A simple change in mentality has now set this player up to have a great game and has set this player to have him to have a nervous, mistake-ridden game. And something I emphasize in the email, which I think is a very important point, isn't it funny how the player who worries more about making mistakes, thinking that will prevent mistakes, actually ends up making more mistakes? So I actually highly recommend you read the email that I sent out to the list. I will link it again. Remember, this usually only goes out to my private email, but I made it public because I think it's very important, and I think a lot of you guys need help with this because I've been getting a lot of questions about it. You can subscribe to the mailing list because I release emails like this all the time if you like, but I'm not requiring that you do so to read this email, okay? So you don't have to if you don't want to, but you can if you want. So take a look at that. I think this is very important for all players to get over that mental block some of you guys have, which causes you to only play well in practice, but not games. And once you're over that mental block, you'll see yourself playing just as well, maybe even better, than you do in practices. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you got something out of this. Make sure you subscribe if you're not subscribed and like this video and share it with your teammates, especially if they are training superstars but not doing it in games. Make sure they see this video and read that email. And guys, thank you so much for your support. We just hit over 1,000 likes on Facebook and we are nearing 4,000 subscribers on YouTube. It'll probably take a couple more weeks or a month or so to hit that. But I just wanted to say thank you so much for all your support. I really do appreciate it. Okay, guys, so thank you once again, and I will see you on the next video.